All right, thanks for joining in, everybody. This is Stephen King Rules. My name is Shannon,
And I'm Megan.
and we are a father-daughter. I don't know. I was going to say duo, but I don't know that that's necessarily the right term for it. But we're just we've been Stephen King fans for a long time, and we've been talking about doing something like this. And I did an old podcast years ago, and then I had just done some recently. I did some re-editing of some of those old episodes for YouTube and kind of got the bug a little bit again. And so then I was like, hey, Megan, you want to talk about some Stephen King stuff? And she was like, yeah, let's do that. And so then we started bouncing around some ideas. And here we are. We're talking about Stephen King rules.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I think this is going to be so fun. My first podcast, and I am a big Stephen King fan.
Yeah, so we've just been, I've been a Stephen King fan since as long as I can remember. It's one of those things, he's just been part of my life since I was a kid. Megan grew up the daughter of a Stephen King fan, so it just kind of rubbed off. And we're just Stephen King fans, and so like we wanted to do something that's a little bit out of the normal because YouTube and podcasts and stuff nowadays are just full of in-depth breakdowns, and here's the 97 Easter eggs that you missed in the last episode and all of that stuff. And nobody ever really just chats about stuff, like how normal fans would. So we thought maybe that would be a good shot. So let's give it a try.
Give it a whirl. Yes. Uh, I've also been a Stephen King fan for as long as I can remember. It was one of those things where my mom was always like, oh gosh, you're too young to read those. And then, held a flashlight up under my blanket at night reading them anyways. I have a huge Stephen King collection, a dog named Cujo. So, although we are not experts, I would say we're qualified to give our opinions and chat about what we like and what we don't.
So what would you say, in your opinion, makes a good adaptation?
I would say my number one thing that makes a good adaptation is the characters. I feel like that is my favorite thing that Stephen King does. It's my favorite thing about him is he will tell you someone's entire life story and then kill them off 5 pages later. So I think when you have an adaptation, bringing those really vibrant characters to life, I think is just so important to me.
I would agree. That would be a big thing for me too. I mean, that's really for me personally. Not, and it's not just Stephen King, but it's any adaptation that I go into. If I know the source material, one of the things that it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it has to be recognizable as the same story.
Yeah.
So when you go into stuff and it's like there's big changes, to me that's a big turnoff. And
Yep.
to give examples for the biggest example, like if you're going to talk about that in terms of Stephen King adaptations, I can give you a good example of what makes a good adaptation, in my opinion, and what makes a bad adaptation, in my opinion. And it comes from the same story, and that's Pet Cemetery. The original
Yeah.
movie, to me, is a masterpiece. It's a great
Yep.
version of retelling of the story. The That new one that came out in 2019 or whatever, that was a piece of crap. And like, not even 20 minutes into the movie, I'm like, oh, this isn't Pet Cemetery at all. And then like
No,
the
it's
whole thing was
awful.
just
Yeah, I think when people try to make an adaptation and they lose the essence of the story, I think that's where they lose me too. If it's something that I don't want to, if it's a Stephen King adaptation that doesn't make me want to go and reread the book, then I don't want to watch it, and I think it just loses that Stephen King magic.
So do you have did you have more that you wanted to add to that? That's all I had was one thing. But
Um, I had a couple things talking about, let me see, like the tension that he, I prefer in an adaptation more of like a thriller than like jump scare heavy, but also like Easter eggs in an adaptation I really like because I feel like he does that in his own work. And then I said too, like that nostalgic feeling. I feel like some of the new adaptations where you watch them and it just feels too like new age modern. I feel like a good Stephen King adaptation is nostalgic. It feels like something that was recorded and you'd watch it on a VHS.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. So, do you have anything then in your? I mean, I outside of what we talked about with like Pet Cemetery, which I guess we didn't really give examples for Pet Cemetery, but I mean, we'll save that for when we talk about Pet Cemetery. But
Yeah.
do you have anything that in your mind that's like when you see right away and you're like, oh, this is bad?
Yeah. I would say that was my biggest problem with like the newer It movie adaptations was what was so special about like the original miniseries and the book is it feels so nostalgic. And you feel like even though those kids are going through horrific, awful things, you want to be a part of their pack. Like if you would have, if, oh gosh, thank goodness that first movie didn't come out when I was like able to get a tattoo age, because I would probably have like a loser lover tattoo because of that. The feeling, you know what I'm talking about, of like
Hmm.
how special it felt. But then like the CGI in that movie really takes you out of it because it's so like goofy almost.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one.
But I
Yeah,
do.
and I think like the Stephen King stuff with the nostalgia. Yeah, that is a good uh, thing worth mentioning with Stephen King because that is definitely what he touches on a lot in his books. So that is, at least for me,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that pulls you in right away when you're like, oh, these kids are the kids I was hanging out with when I was a kid.
Yeah. And
So,
that, like his characters, the way he writes his characters is just so relatable. People that normally they're the underdog who he's writing, um, and you want to be their friend. You're rooting for them, and I feel like that too in a Stephen King adaptation. I like when it's an actor who looks like a real person. I feel like when talking about like the new Firestarter movie where they have like Zac Efron in, it takes me out of it because it doesn't feel like a tangible character. It feels like an actor playing a Stephen King character. I'm not a fan of that.
I know what you're talking about. I know. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about with that.
I will
Well,
say my famous actor playing a Stephen King character that I approved of was Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkie. Was like no one else could have played that role like her.
right.
I love
Yeah.
that movie.
Although, well, did you see the second season of Castle Rock where they did
I
the
haven't watched
prequel
it
to
yet,
that?
but it's good,
Because
right?
the whatever her name is, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it gets a little weird at times and stuff, but for the most part, it was pretty good. And the lady that played her on that character or on that show was really good too, as a younger Annie. So she was very believable.
She was. Yeah, I'll have
The
to
way
watch
they
that.
wrapped it all up.
Well, and I guess
Yeah,
too,
that
like
was
James Franco in 11/22/63. I feel like he did a good job,
yeah, that's a good one too. Yep.
and I guess I also do love Glenn Powell in The Running Man, but that's just because I love Glenn Powell.
Yeah. I don't know if that one counts as a good adaptation or not.
I liked that adaptation, but I also am Glenn Powell's biggest fan. So
So, do we want to give our spoiler for the, or not a spoiler? That would, I guess, a teaser for the next episode. Then, are
yeah,
we?
what do we want to talk about next month, next episode?
Do we want to do what we kind of had talked about, and we just want to start at the beginning and work our way through?
Yeah,
And so let's start with I think the first one's Carrie, right?
yeah. I think that was his first book.
I believe so.
Hold on.
I think that was the first one that got made because I think that one got
That was the
written
first
and
book
then
he
like picked
published.
up like yeah, and I think it got picked up like right away. So
Yeah.
unless things change, and let's be honest, I mean this is our pilot episode. I can't imagine that we're going to have that many listeners that are like waiting, bated breath until next month, and like, oh, you didn't talk about Carrie.
Ah, that's my favorite.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys next month with Carrie.